What's going on, guys? Welcome to your 22nd tutorial, and in this lesson we're going to be talking more about CSS3 properties. And what I did is I deleted all those gradients and text shadows, and I basically just have this plain old box with some text in it, no effects whatsoever, and that's where we're going to be starting. Now, the very first thing I want to talk to you guys about is something that I don't even like, but I need to tell you guys about it, or else, they're going to say that you skipped over something. It's called the outline. Now, the outline is pretty much the thing around your border. And let me just make a really obvious one. I'll put like 7 pixels solid red. It has all the same properties of your border. It's just like an additional border, basically. So the reason I don't like it is because whenever you're trying to kind of like lay everything out, you already have to consider the element itself, the padding, the margin, the border, and the overall width of the element. And then if you add in the outline, it's just too many things to keep track of. So even though you can add some pretty nice looking outlines, I don't recommend doing it because whenever you work with the width and laying out your website, it just gets too much. But for this tutorial, I'll keep it in there. So now that I went over the outline, I want to talk to you guys about some cool transformations. Now, a transformation typically in a lot of computer programs you can scale, rotate, stretch things out. And with CSS3, it's no different. You can go ahead and add the property transform, and depending on what value you add, this pretty much is saying how do you want to transform the element. Now, since we added the property in this box, whatever we do, it's going to transform this yellow, blue, and red box right here. So say we wanted to, let me go ahead and show you guys a simple one. Say we wanted to scale the element, and scale means either shrink or grow it. We're going to, by default, it's 1. Anything smaller is going to make it smaller. Anything bigger is going to expand it. So if we add a 1.5, it's going to be 1.5 times the normal size. So check it out. Big old mumbo jumbo scale. Now, you can also have an X and a Y. For example, if you have something like 1, 3, what it's going to do is it's going to scale along the X value left and right, keep that the same. By default, it's 1, and the 3 is going to stretch it along the Y, if I'm correct. So now it's stretched out vertically, but the same width horizontally. And another cool trick you can do is if you add -1 to 1, right, like that, your text becomes Russian. How awesome is that? So anyways, let's go ahead and get rid of that scale and talk about some other transformations. Another one is rotate, and if you add 45 in there, the parameter rotate takes is the degrees, and I think I talked to you guys about degrees. Oh yeah, whenever we were talking about gradients, you could use the degrees too. And a lot of people were like, okay, what I use for degrees is actually DEG. So I got rid of the scale, and if you see rotate 45, there you go. And I think you can have a negative value, but that just changes the other way it rotates, but you don't really need that because it's kind of like if you rotate something 180 degrees or -180, then it turns out being the same thing. So now let me go ahead and get rid of this rotate, and I want to talk to you guys about skew. Now, I'm going to ask you this. Before I even show you this, please, please do not ever use what I'm about to teach you. So let's go ahead and refresh this and check it out. I can't think possibly when you would ever want this, even if you're making like, well, I'll talk to you guys about like dynamic effects later, but even if you were just using this in effect and this wasn't your end result, it looks stupid anyway. So I have to go over it, because I want to teach you guys all the nitty gritty stuff, but please do not ever use skew. I think it looks ugly, and I will never go to your website if you do. So anyways, now that we covered that, I want to talk to you guys about the last one, and that's translate. Now, whenever you translate something, it basically means just move it. So unless you're talking, in everyday life, that means changing one language into another language. But anyways, in this sense, in CSS3, it means just moving something. Now, in order to move something, we could either give it one value, but I typically pass it two values. Imagine this is a grid from math class. Your x and y is left and right, or excuse me, your x is left and right, and your y is up and down. Whenever you give it two positive values, it's going to move it to the right and down. So 150 pixels, 300 pixels. I don't even know if that's going to show up on my screen. But what we were pretty much doing, as you can see in the bottom right, is we moved it right and down. So that's pretty much means the x value and the y value that you want to move it by. Now, if you would give it negative values, it would either move it up or to the left. So just imagine, whenever you did whenever you were graphing quadratic equations in school, up and left are negative, right and down are positive. So that's nice. And the last thing I want to talk about is this. If you want to apply multiple effects on the same box, you need to write them all on one line. You can't have four different WebKit transform properties spaced one under each other. So, for example, if you had this awesome box like this one right here, and you wanted to, maybe translate it. Let's see. We'll move it 100 pixels down and 100 pixels right. Actually, it's right down. But anyways, we wanted to translate, and then we wanted to rotate it 30 degrees. And the last thing we want to do is scale it by zero point 0.8. Now, anything under 1 is going to shrink it a little bit because 1 is the standard. We need to apply them all on the same transform line. So now, if I go ahead and save this, as long as I didn't type anything wrong, as you can see, it moved it to the right and down, rotated it by 30 degrees, and shrunk it a little bit. Kind of unnoticeable, but trust me, it shrunk. So that is all I have to talk to you guys about for this tutorial. And if you're saying, okay, I know what you guys are saying right now. This stuff is all stupid because if I wanted something smaller, I would just, make the width smaller. If I wanted something moved to a different location, I would just, maybe change the margins or something. So when the heck would I ever even use this crap? Well, you actually use it more often, not in the original layout, but sometimes for awesome text effects. For example, if you wanted to hover over something and it would rotate or translate or scale, then your website could do that without using Flash or JavaScript or anything. So that kind of gets into a little more deep technique, but we'll be talking about that later on. So that's the usefulness of this, and so there you go. That's all I'm gonna ramble on for this tutorial. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you later.